It's time to talk about the horror films of Blumhouse. Yes, everyone's heard of it, and everyone's watched some of their movies too. Most horror fans are already aware of the kind of films that Blumhouse makes, and many of us know about the top-rated ones, such as Insidious and Paranormal Activity. But what about their sequels? In this video, we're going to talk about the most underrated sequels of the production company. First up, there's the famous Paranormal Activity, the marked ones. Let's talk about one of the most famous horror film franchises of all time, Paranormal Activity. The 2007 movie was the first Blumhouse production that got audiences hooked on their TV screens. Since then, Paranormal Activity has had a dedicated fan following, and we're going to look at its much less talked about sequel. Paranormal Activity, The Marked Ones, was released in 2014 and deals with witches and the occult, which gives the franchise a unique twist. The story begins with Jesse Arista, played by Andrew Jacobs, who just finished high school and starts looking into the murder of his neighbor, Anna Sanchez, played by Gloria Sandoval. It's said that Anna Sanchez is a witch, and that's what intrigues Jesse to investigate deeper into her case. It gets impossible for Jesse to ignore the terrifying reality, and he's caught in a dark and twisted trap. This is by far one of the best Paranormal Activity sequels ever made, and it's super underrated. Up next, here's the latest Paranormal Activity, Next of Kin. Fans of the franchise have enjoyed almost all of the sequels that have been released. Critics were wrong to judge Paranormal Activity Next of Kin harshly, which was released in 2021 on Paramount+. In this sequel, Margot, played by Emily Bader, and Chris, played by Roland Buck II, are filming a documentary about her past. They visit the Beeler farm in Buffalo, New York, to meet with Samuel, played by Henry Ayers Brown, an Amish man with whom Margot is somehow related. Paranormal Activity Next of Kin, like the name suggests, deals with the story of Margot and the mysterious Amish man who's related to her. Samuel's a mysterious character, and soon the documentary unfolds the deep and dark secrets of the Amish community. Margot's the kind of main character that you're just shaking your head at. She doesn't flinch or hesitate when she goes in the middle of nowhere with her friends. Aside from her character, the sequel is pretty creepy and has many unexpected twists at the end. Next, we have everyone's favorite Insidious, Chapter 3. Everyone knows about the Insidious franchise. It's one of the most watched horror films, and it has a loyal fan following as well. But how much does anyone know about its sequel? Insidious Chapter 3 is the first film that Leigh Whannell directed, but the third part hasn't received much hype. Unlike The Conjuring, which has a lot of popular sequels, Insidious Chapter 3 hasn't been given enough credit. The sequel takes an interesting look at demonic possession, and it dives deeper into the history and background of the family. It's more of a prequel, but still, it's been underrated for quite a long while. Quinn Brenner, played by Stephanie Scott, is a teenager, and she meets Elise Rayner, played by Lynn Shay, who wants to communicate with her mom after she dies. The sequel stands out because of its creepy villain, dubbed the Man Who Can't Breathe. This one managed to stay true to the kind of horror that fans of Blumhouse enjoy the most. Coming up, let's talk about Unfriended Dark Web. The 2014 movie Unfriended was super popular amongst fans, but its sequel, Unfriended Dark Web, which was released in 2018, is an underappreciated part of Blumhouse production. Matthias, played by Colin Woodell, finds a laptop, and he soon realizes that he's getting more than he bargained for as creepy messages from a user named Charon4 come up on the computer screen. The first movie was a classic teen horror film, but the sequel is equally, if not more, interesting. Fans have claimed that Unfriended Dark Web is scarier, as Matthias and his friends become deeply involved in the cyber mess, and they soon realize that there's truly no way out of it. The group of friends foolishly play around with the stolen laptop, and they end up being stalked by hackers from the dark web. The sequel doesn't have a supernatural element to it, and it's a change of pace for the found footage film genre. Found footage genre mostly focuses on supernatural forces as part of the storyline, just like in the Paranormal Activity franchise, and Unfriended Dark Web deals with a very realistic scenario of the dark web. Following this, let's not forget Happy Death Day to You. Happy Death Day was a popular horror movie of the production house, and it also has a dedicated fan following. The film starred Jessica Roth as Tree, who's murdered, and then keeps coming back to life so she can figure out what's happening to her. It sounds like a different genre of horror, right? Well, as much hype as the first part got, the sequel has remained underappreciated. Happy Death Day to You is more like a horror comedy, and fans have stayed loyal to the film. The sequel deals with Ryan Phan, played by Phi Vu, who's killed and finds himself in the same bizarre situation as Tree did. So the movie follows Tree and her boyfriend Carter Davis, played by Israel Broussard, helping out Ryan and trying to figure out the whole situation. situation. We know this might not sound that interesting, but believe the fans when they say that the story gets creepy and really bizarre. It's a perfect choice for those of you who enjoy time loop stories. It's slightly over the top, sure, but what can we say? We just love a good horror film, the same as all of you. It's enough to creep you out while also making you laugh at the same time. Bizarre, yet terrifying, just like the first part. Next we have The Gallows Act 2, another horror sequel that's also a found footage film. The Gallows 1 from 2015 tells the story of teenagers acting in a play that seems to be haunted. It's probably not the best horror film, and it's also not the most critically acclaimed film, but it's a fun one. The genre works as a high school horror film, and the sequel is also underappreciated. In the sequel, The Gallows 2, Anna Rue, who's played by Emma Horvath, is new to her high school, and she performs a monologue from the play The Gallows. The play, like in the first part, is haunted, and it's full of darkness and evil. When Anna goes viral for starring in the play, that's when the horror starts. It might not be the best Blumhouse horror project, but it's still a must-watch for those of you who want to see how the play progresses and how the story concludes. It's also for those of you who enjoy the horror comedy genre. Now for The Craft Legacy. The Craft, which was released in 1996, is one of those films whose sequels live up to the expectations of the people. The Craft Legacy is the long-awaited sequel that was released in 2021, and it's not easy to create a new cast of characters that live up to the original ones. Movies about witches can become cliched, especially in this day and age where Blumhouse also produces other powerhouse films, but The Craft Legacy has indeed hit the mark. The four characters are just as how the original one portrayed them, and what makes the sequel a horror movie classic is the development each character goes through. Kaylee Spaney's main character, Lily Skechner, is shown as a very realistic high school girl who's nervous about living in a new town. She doesn't quite fit in with the crowd, and she struggles to make new friends too. Just like in the original film, the characters have stayed true to themselves, which could have been a really difficult task for the director. The Craft Legacy has remained underrated mostly because not many people have watched the classic 1996 horror film, but for the fans who have been loyal, they haven't been disappointed at all. Lastly, let's talk about Ouija: Origin of Evil. While there are several Blumhouse horror sequels that have remained underrated, there's a prequel that has stayed under the radar for quite some time. Ouija: Origin of Evil is the prequel to Ouija, which was released in 2014, and it's the kind of horror film that's well made. It's an impressive one by Mike Flanagan, who's made many horror shows for Netflix. Ouija: Origin of Evil uses the classic evil child trope, which is perfectly portrayed by Lulu Welson's character Doris Zander. The child's possessed by an evil spirit, and Alice, played by Elizabeth Reeser, has to save her daughter and figure out what is happening with Doris at their home. Fans have claimed that Ouija: Origin of Evil has a scary element to it that the previous film did not have. Alice is an expert in dealing with paranormal occurrences, but the twist is that she has no idea why an evil spirit has possessed her innocent daughter. The movie takes a good direction, and those who love Flanagan's work know that there are always really scary elements hidden in the films. Ouija: Origin of Evil is no exception. That's a wrap for this video. So which Blumhouse sequel is your favorite? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.